Hey everyone, Sheila here from Lifewithpets. So today we're going to be doing some tank maintenance. I'm going to do a water change and show you how we clean our filter. As always, the links will be in the description box below for anything that you see and also additional information. So let's get on with the video. So the items that you'll need when doing a water change are a jug or a bucket, your siphon for taking out the water, the prime water conditioner to make the water safe again for your fish, and then we use also a bulldog clip. So before we get into doing the water change, I just want to say there are many different ways of doing this, and when I came to do this video I really had to give a lot of thought into how am I going to put this across, because I know that we do things that a lot of people aren't going to agree with, and that is okay because there are many ways of doing it. But if I changed it up just for this video, then I wouldn't have been being honest, and that is important to me. So I am going to show you exactly what we do with all our betta fish tanks, and all I can say is we never have any issues with them. So this does work, and it definitely does work for us. So once I've got all my items together, I usually will fill up a jug of water, and you do need to make sure that you match the temperature as best as you can to the temperature in the tank. I then add my water conditioner to it, and you do need to make sure that you just read the directions on the back of your bottle to get the right dosage. I then just leave the water standing until I'm ready to use it. So today I am going to show cleaning the filter. Now normally when you have just set up a tank, you wouldn't need to clean the filter for probably 8 to 10 weeks initially, depending on the stock of your tank. This tank has been up and running for about 6 weeks now, and so I am going to show the process because I am confident that the cycle is okay, so I won't disrupt anything. So because I want to show the process of cleaning a sponge filter, it is one of the most asked questions that we get. Now if you're cleaning a hang on the back filter, or you have a different type of filter, then it may look a little different to what I'm doing today. But with a hang on the back filter, you would just replace the cartridge every 4 to 6 weeks, again depending on the stock of the tank. If it's a sponge filter and you've only maybe got one betta fish in the tank, then again you would only need to maybe clean that filter every 4 to 6 weeks. So they don't need to be cleaned as often as people think, especially if the stocking level in the tank is very low. So once I've taken the sponge filter out, I add it to my jug, and then I'm going to siphon out some of the water into the jug so that we can clean the sponge filter. I use the bulldog clip to hold the tubing in place so that there's no risk of it coming out when I'm actually doing it, because obviously I don't want water all over my floor, and so this is a good way to stop that from happening. So now we're ready to siphon the water out of the tank, and I see so many people sucking on a tube, and you really don't need to do that. It is very, very easy to set the siphon going. You just put it in the tank at an angle, raise it up, bring it back into the tank at the same angle, and then turn it down, and that's it. The water is then running into our jug. So I'm going to fill the jug about halfway, and then I'm going to then clean out the sponge filter. While the jug is filling, I'm going to then just go round the tank. Now if you had gravel in your tank, then you would actually sort of be plunging the siphon into the gravel to get the dirt out, but because this is a live plant tank, then you don't need to do that. All I do is sort of just like waft it over the top, and it will pick up any loose debris. But any fish waste or excess food that has sunk into the substrate, I don't want to get that out, because that will actually become food for the plants. So with a planted tank it is a little different. However, if you are using fake plants, then like I say, just plunge it into the gravel to get all the dirt out. When cleaning a filter, you just want to sort of keep squeezing it to get the excess dirt out. With sponge filters, they will actually come apart so that you can just sort of clean the inner workings of them to make sure that the airflow is not obstructed in any way. Now this is probably one of the things where people will disagree with me, that you shouldn't clean the gravel and do the sponge filters at the same time, and we have done that in all our years of fish keeping, and it has never caused a problem. Now if you were to have an unbalanced tank, maybe you were having an issue with it cycling or an issue with it staying cycled and it keeps crashing, well then maybe doing the two things at the same time would wouldn't be a good idea. Maybe just do the sponge filter and actually just take water out as opposed to physically cleaning the gravel as well. So once I have done the cleaning of the sponge, I then go back and just take out the rest of the water. Now typically on our tanks we do anything from 25 to 50%. It just depends on the tank. We do that weekly, and there isn't really a hard and fast rule. When anyone asks how much should I take out of a tank, I will typically say 25 to 30%. Some people would say 10 to 15%. An awful lot depends on the stocking of a tank, whether you're using live plants or not. So really there's a lot of factors into how much to take out of a tank. I mean, I have one betta fish tank that has a lot of snails in, and so I do 50 to 60% on that once a week to keep it balanced, and that just works perfectly fine. A lot of people would freak out with a 50% water change, whereas to me that's perfectly normal. So every tank is different, every setup is different, and so you need to do what is right for your tank. The only thing I would say is it does really need to be done weekly, and that then keeps the parameters healthy and safe for the fish. Once that's all done, I then add back in the sponge filter, and then I go about cleaning the glass if it needs doing. One thing I realised at the beginning, I didn't add in the sponge as one of the items that you need. Now we do use a different sponge for all the tanks because I don't want to contaminate one tank from another. So ideally, if you do have multiple tanks, you really should have multiple items for taking care of those tanks. Once that's all done, we then go back to our jug of water and we fill the tank back up. Usually I pour the water onto my hand, and this will help not disrupt all the substrate. Otherwise, if you just pour it straight in, it would just make a really cloudy mess. If you do it this way, you will stop the substrate from being kicked up, and so the tank will look nice and clean when you're done. One thing you may have noticed while doing the water change is that we didn't take our betta fish out, and we don't do that simply because I think that it stresses them out a lot more by doing that. By the time that you have caught them and then they've been in this little tiny cup and then you're putting them back into the tank, I just think it's extremely stressful. If you think about it, if you had a tank full of fish, you had a betta fish and maybe some platies and some harlequin rasboras and some corridorus, and you've got all these fish in a tank, you're not going to remove all those fish while you do a water change. So to me, I just think that it doesn't make any sense taking the fish out. They do get used to water changes with no issues whatsoever. Bandit never gets stressed out. In fact, none of our fish get stressed out when we're doing a water change. It is just part of the routine that we have with them, and I do think it's a lot less stressful not taking them out. Again, that is just personal preference. If you choose to take yours out, then that's perfectly fine too. So the water change is complete, and now we just need to add the lid and the lights back on. I just want to talk about the lid for a minute, in that we have had so many questions about it. The lid is made of acrylic, and we have just drilled 2 holes in, one that we can open it and also we can feed through them as well. Bandit does know when I tap on it that usually means feeding time, and I am going to feed him in a minute. We do have the cutouts on the back, so for the wires for heater and for filters and anything else that you put into the tank. Also, I do want to quickly mention there is no heater in this tank for those of you that have not been following this series, and that is basically because our house sits at 78-79 degrees consistently, and so we don't need a heater in the tank. The lid will actually flip and be used either way, so that because acrylic does actually bend over time, and so all you then need to do is just flip it round the other way, and then it's back to working perfectly fine. We have been asked if we're going to sell these lids, and we are going to look into it, but absolutely no guarantees. So if we do decide to do it, you can be sure I will do a video on it, but until then they're not available, we're not selling them, but we are going to look into it. Okay guys, so there you have it, a nice clean tank. The next video in this series is going to be on feeding your betta fish, and that will be out next Tuesday. We will be doing a video on Friday this week as well, and also a live stream on Saturday. Friday's video is going to be about what fish can actually live with betta fish, and then on Saturday we're going to do a live stream, so make sure you have your notifications turned on. We're probably going to do it Saturday morning. I'm not really sure what time yet, maybe 11 o'clock, and that will be Eastern Standard Time, so make sure that notification bell is hit so that you know when we go live. You're not going to want to miss it. We're also going to be running some sales for Labor Day weekend as well on our website, but I'm going to go more into detail on that on the live stream on Saturday. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Thank you so much for supporting this channel, and we'll see you next time.